Hello, DACATHON2020. This is Luke Stokes with EOSDAC, and I'm really excited to show you the DAC factory. This is something the whole team has been working on for quite some time, and I'm really proud of it. I think this is kind of the culmination of what we've all been a part of for over a year and a half now, trying to make DACs and DAOs something completely accessible to anybody. And the DAC factory is a way to create your own DAO or your own DAC very, very quickly and easily. So what I want to demonstrate here is kind of what we have running so far. This is up on the Jungle testnet, and we're hoping it's going to be live soon once we get all the bugs worked out and everything, so that as part of this DACathon experience, very soon you'll be able to create your own DAC. As you're hearing about all the cool things that DACs can do, hopefully you can participate as well. So I just want to run through this pretty quickly. The first part here, we're going to do a, let's see, we'll call it Luke test. I think C is the next one I'm working on. Luke test C, let's say. We'll call it Luke TC. That'll be my token symbol. And we can give a description here. This is a test DAC for the DACathon 2020. And it explains here just kind of how the token is used, how it's going to be used for your governance and all of that. Basically, if you already are coming with an EOS token, you might need to modify that token to have special methods in your token contract for the DAC to work and use our kind of create via JSON method, which you can see back here on the home part. You could do this here. But in this case, we're just going to create a new token as part of this process. And again, if you leave this page and come back to it, it's okay. As you saw there, it keeps your information. So we're going to have, let's say, 10 million of those tokens. You can leave the decimal places there unless you have an important reason to change it. And then here, there's a little discussion about how many custodians you want. So if you've got like a lot of value you're trying to protect within your DAC, then you might want to have a larger group of people making multi-signature permissioned decisions on how the funds are going to be used, what proposals are approved, what modifications to the DAC, like the constitution or any configuration variables, things like that. You might want to determine how many you need. If it's just you and a bunch of buddies playing around with something, you probably don't need that many. If it's a very serious business with millions of dollars involved, obviously you would want to have more custodians as part of your DAC. You also want to determine what the election term is. So the default here is 7 days. This kind of determines basically any time people are voting all throughout the period, but at the end of the voting period, it actually calculates up the votes and says, okay, these are the top vote getters. Those are the people that will be put into the multi-sig to actually run the DAC. And so you can set that to whatever you want. It could be a year, 6 months, a number of days, however you want to do it. The next part here, I'm going to go ahead and just put in my website, but you could just put in your website information there and then a URL. I'm just going to copy this real quick. You got your logo and your logo mark. And then you can pick a color scheme as well. And this you want to kind of go through here and pick something that works for your particular brand that you're excited about. And you can use a light theme or a dark theme. And then through here, the thought process here was that we want to create value for the EOS DAC token holders, and we've been working on this, as you know, for quite some time. And so there is expenses involved. We have the state history node that needs to be run behind the scenes to make this work, and the API filler and the API processor, as well as the web client API, along with hosting the actual web client itself, and ongoing contract updates and security bug fixes, all those kind of things. So we do have a monthly fee of 20 EOS, and there's a one-time setup fee as well. Now, again, all of this is open source. You don't have to pay this ongoing. If you feel that you have a team that can manage all of these things yourself, then all the code is open source and you can certainly run all those APIs yourself. But we wanted to make this super easy for anyone to get involved, because the more we started working with this, the more we realized how complicated it is. So definitely go through here and make sure you read through the terms of service, because you're kind of coming into an agreement with DACOCO, which is the service company for EOS DAC that's making all this available. And then when everything's ready to go, you can go ahead and verify your information here as well. And I have to log in here and pay for the DAC. Now it's important, whatever account you log into when you're creating the DAC, it's going to be the Genesis custodian. So all the tokens are going to be controlled by that account to begin with. And they're going to be kind of the first custodian on the DAC. And then they can transfer tokens to other people, start voting and electing in other DAC members. But it just kind of starts out with this first Genesis account. So when you're going through this process, you might want to make sure you log in with the account that you're comfortable being the account that initially controls the DAC. So we're going in through here, it's creating all the accounts, it's adding all the information to the different tables involved, it's updating the DAC directory and the permission systems and all that kind of stuff. Setting up the auth permissions. So I'm actually recording this in Puerto Rico. As you may have heard, there's been an earthquake that kind of took out power and electricity to quite a few places. So I'm actually tethered off my phone for the internet here, so it might be a little slower than normal. It goes through the whole setup, and then it actually spins up your own member client front end with your customizations and sets everything up. So we're going to give this just a little bit longer, and there we go. Your DAC was successful. Now this next step, you have to kind of agree to the terms and conditions as the DAC itself, and this is kind of one of those legal things that you have to go through. That, you know, the initial agreement was you as an individual creating the DAC, and now that the DAC exists, the DAC is kind of entering into a service agreement with Coco. So definitely give this a read through. We're trying to keep everybody protected when we do stuff like this. Is kind of important. Let's go ahead and check on that, and this will validate the DAC. All right, and now we can click over to our actual DAC front end. So this was all just set up for us. This is created for us as we created the DAC. And you can see here, I want to just refresh this page while that's loading. And you can see the message that came through, the JSON that came through to create the DAC is right here. So this whole DAC was just created. The EOS was sent over, and this is the JSON that you would need if you were to create it via the JSON method. But right here, we have our first DAC. We can go ahead and log in as our Genesis custodian. Loop test C, there it is. When we log in here, we'll be able to kind of see all the initial features of the DAC. We can set up our profile here. Oh yeah, first thing it wants us to do is sign the Constitution. So every member of the DAC has to agree to the Constitution. And this is just a boilerplate Constitution. You can see here it has some placeholders. We're going to be improving this in the future so you can add in your own core principles. That's kind of the key point. Your group of people with a shared goal, what is it they're trying to accomplish? How are they going to treat each other? All that kind of stuff. You'll put that right in here in your core principles. And all the other information, a lot of it will be injected in from the configuration that you've already selected. But there's other information in here that you'd want to look through. And of course, you can provide your own custom Constitution as well. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and sign this one. And we definitely encourage that. You know, this is just kind of a boilerplate. Definitely you need to refer to your own lawyers as far as this goes. It's kind of up to you to make sure you're comfortable with what your community is going to abide by as far as your own Constitution. So now that that's signed, I can come in here, and I've already been registered as a candidate, and I can actually vote for myself or other candidates. And this is kind of the voting process right here. It tells us how much of we need 1% of the tokens to be engaged in order to unlock the DAC. And since we selected 7 custodian candidates, we would actually need 7 there. So one thing you can do is come in here, switch accounts, and log in as a bunch of other EOS accounts, you know, your other accounts if you're testing, and you can actually register them as candidates, and then they'll show up in this list and you can vote them as well. But I'll go ahead and submit a vote here. Exit that out. There we go. Submit votes. And once you have enough candidates voted in and everything's unlocked, then you have a full DAC that is fully controlled by a multi-sig. And that's pretty exciting stuff. So I'll show here as an example, just a little bit behind the scenes of what's actually going on here. If we go here and we look at on Jungle, we can find this loop test. That's the one we just created. You can see that's in part of the DAC Factory IO, and you also see that in the DAC directory account. You can find that in there. And there's loop test C. There's our token contract and everything we set up. And one of the things I wanted to go in here a little bit is to demonstrate that there's 2 accounts, 2 EOS accounts that get created for your DAC. One of them is the authorization account, loop test auth in this case, and one of them is the treasury account, loop test treasury. So I want to go ahead and show those accounts real quick and kind of show how it works behind the scenes. So right now, this auth account only has that one Genesis custodian member, and you've got all the different permissions for high, medium, and low. And once the 7 custodians are elected, you know, or whatever you decided, Once they get voted in and elected and the DAC gets unlocked, then this permission account will completely adjust according to your DAC permissions. So like if you have 7 custodians, you have like 5 of 7 and 4 of 7 different voting thresholds to accomplish different things for your DAC. And there's much more here that I could go into. This is where you can manage your DAC, propose a money transfer. This is where you can update your constitution. This is where the whole configuration is done. You can change the number of custodians, the different voting thresholds that you have, 6 of 5, 5 of 7, that kind of, or 6 of 7, 5 of 7, that kind of stuff. Worker proposals are not quite live yet, but this is where you'll be able to configure those as well. And then of course your token staking, if you have that built in, your color scheme, things of that nature, and then different features as well. And then under the advanced section, you can actually load a contract directly and do a complete multi-sig for your custodians to change something about the DAC itself and how it runs, like configuration, things like that. You can also create, this is where you'll see proposals that will be voted for and voted on. And this is where the worker proposals will be. And then of course we have a token explorer here, and it shows how the auth account went ahead and sent those tokens out to the Genesis custodian just a few minutes ago. And if you're logged in as a member, you'll see different member tools as well. So actually, I think what we could do, we might save a little bit of time. I'm going to go ahead and do an example of a test transfer. And since I have the tokens all right now, we could do this Luke test. Let's see, it was the test treasury, I believe it was. This is where you could kind of move tokens from the Genesis custodian over to the treasury account for the DAC. We'll just move like 1 million tokens. And that's Luke test C. And we can go ahead and send those over. That could be a more complicated multi-sig. This is kind of an example of a transfer. But yeah, that's essentially the DAC factory. I wanted to demonstrate that for you. We're very excited about this. I think this is going to be, you can set up your profile, that kind of information. I think this is going to be really exciting for all the people who have been waiting for DACs and DAOs and a tool for building DACs and DAOs. And again, this can be for any project, any company, any nonprofit, even eventually government institutions at some point. I'm just very excited about this transparent method of governance where you can take a group of people with a shared goal and put them on chain so they can work together to figure out worker proposals and decisions on funding, decisions on configuration of how they're going to run and govern themselves. So it's pretty exciting stuff. I hope you get excited about it as well. I hope the DAC factory serves you well as you move forward, building out different projects in DACs. And definitely tell us about it. Definitely give the EOS DAC token holders your support because they've worked really hard to support us and making this happen. And if you create your own token, think about airdropping on the EOS DAC token holders as well. I'm sure they'd like to participate in your DAC or DAO. I hope you have an awesome DACAthon 2020, and thanks so much for listening. Take care.